Coming up on Empower with Tristan Canfor-Dumas.
Others, passion drives productivity. If you really like what you're doing, you will put in the extra effort, you'll put in the extra time to be the best you can at it. I've always learned most in my career by working on the most difficult problems that face the organization and the team that I was on. Nothing big or really important happens by one person. I believe business can not just generate profit, but I believe business can do good as well.
Hello, welcome back. My name is Tristan Canfor-Dumas. I'm the host of Empower, and today we are blessed to have Mr. Edward Hightower here to share his insights on a myriad of topics. Mr. Edward Hightower is the Managing Director of Motoring Ventures LLC. He's the CEO and President of Lordstown Motors Corporation and author of the book Motoring Africa, Sustainable Automobile Industrialization. This conversation is just going to be crazy. Just tune in. Make sure that you have everything set aside. This is something to look forward to. And without further ado, sit back, relax, enjoy, and most importantly, take notes. All right, Mr. Hightower, welcome.
Thank you, Tristan. It is great to be back in Accra. And thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on your program. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to have this podcast. So the first question that I have for you is, who is Edward Hightower?
Wow, that's a broad one. I would sum it up as I'm an automotive entrepreneur. I'm the CEO of an electric vehicle manufacturer, and I'm a published author and also a martial artist from a personal side. So I'm someone who's been very passionate about the automotive industry since a very young age. And I've been blessed to have a career that's allowed me to grow and contribute to the growth of that industry and learn a tremendous amount from it. So that's who I'd say I am.
Okay. And I was doing a little bit of background research.
Yes.
And I saw that you had some stints with some various automotive industries and automotive companies. Would you like to share your experience and all of that?
Yes, sure. I've spent about 30 years in the global automotive industry between Ford, BMW, and GM, primarily in product development, engineering, business leadership, P&L, profit and loss leadership, and other executive roles between those companies. I've been blessed to work all around the world in the automotive industry: China, India, South Korea, Mexico, Brazil, several countries on the African continent. And so I feel like I'm someone who's been really blessed to have been able to put their passion and turn it into a career.
Okay. In all of that, it seems like it's a lot of things that you would need in order to get to that state in terms of certification and education. Mm-hmm. So what courses did you take in order to be certified for those roles?
Sure. So I started out, I studied engineering at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. That's where I did my undergrad. I got my Bachelor of Science in General Engineering, and I focused on automotive because since a very young kid, I was very passionate about the industry. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, and at that time, people used to work on their own cars. So I always liked cars from a really young age. I used to look at, read all the car magazines from a very young age. I used to watch mechanics repair vehicles. I would call myself helping them out, and that's how I learned a lot about vehicles. I was very active in the Boy Scouts, so we had an old truck, 1960s. I know that sounds ancient to you. 1960s pickup truck that we used to use to collect paper around the neighborhood and recycle that paper for money to raise money for our Boy Scout troop. And at the age of 11, I appointed myself in charge of maintenance for the truck. So I learned how to do things like change oil, change spark plugs, change air filters, and maintain the truck. So that helped me be really hands-on and learn about cars. So that experience in the neighborhood and that experience in the Boy Scouts, and then combined with my engineering education, is how I got my first start in the auto industry as an engineer with General Motors. I later went on to get a master's degree in business at the University of Michigan, go Blue, and then my career just went from there. So a combination of engineering and business from an education standpoint, but really developing a passion using a number of things and a number of mentors that were in my life.
Okay, why was engineering the first step to all of this?
No, that's a good question. It was the first step because I was very interested in how these products came together, how they came together, how they worked. I was one of those kids that was very interested in how they worked, and as I learned more about how they'd work through, as I was saying, changing oil, doing tune-ups and things like that, I realized that once I learned what an engineer did, they basically take science and apply it to the creation of products and solving problems. So I said, okay, it seems like a good path. I also looked at people who got to spend all their time around cars. And there were people who were designers, who were more on the creative side, more industrial designers. And then there were the engineers who basically took those designs and executed them to turn them into products. I didn't feel I had the creative drawing skills, if you will, to be on the designer side, but I felt that with my my interest and what I'd been able to learn, I could play a strong part on the execution side. So that's why I took engineering as a path.
Mm-hmm. So it was engineering, then it was business.
Yes.
So
yeah, I worked for several years between getting my engineering degree. I worked for about 5 years and then went back and got my my master's in business administration.
Why do you think it was necessary to get the business?
Oh, yeah. I would say, as an engineer, I felt that I was executing decisions that were made by someone else. I didn't understand all of the logic behind that. I'll give you an example. Earlier in my career, I was what was called the vehicle performance engineer for the Cadillac Coupe de Ville, Coupe de Ville, Sedan de Ville, and Fleetwood. All right, those were very. This was back in the 90s or so you may not be familiar with those, but those were luxury vehicles. I was responsible for how the vehicle rode, how it handled, how quiet it was going down the road, what the steering felt like. And I did a number of projects related to future models, tuning the suspension, tuning the steering, working on noise and vibration issues. And I had no idea that at that time, that was the best-selling luxury car in America. Had no idea, because I wasn't exposed to the commercial side of the business, nor did I really know a lot of the costs that went into going into a vehicle. And I as much as I liked being an engineer, as much as I liked the hands-on work, because I used to work at the test track. I was a certified test driver. I was certified to test vehicles at 100 plus miles per hour. Wow. And it took some time for me to get the training to do that, but I could do those things. But I wanted to be involved in the decision making as well. So I felt I needed to understand how decisions got made. I needed to understand the business, the economics behind it, the costs, the revenue. How do you understand what the customer wants? How do you deliver what the customer wants? How do you convince them to buy your product? And I saw, just like I decided to study engineering because I saw what they got to do. As I looked further down the road from a career standpoint, and I saw the people that were making the decisions that I in the future wanted to make, many of them had masters in business administration. Many of them had MBAs. Many of them had started out in engineering. Not all of them had taken the path on product development as I was on, but I thought that skill and that education would be important. And in retrospect, I think it was.
So would you say that this is something that you recommend to a lot of the young people?
I would. I would say follow your passion. I've heard it said by others, passion drives productivity. If you really like what you're doing, You will put in the extra effort. You'll put in the extra time to be the best you can at it. You will learn extra. You will go that extra mile to solve that problem if you care, because you really like what you're doing. And I think that combination of having a technical background so you can understand the fundamentals of the product that you're working on, and then combining that with the business background, which allows you to understand the customer, the commercial side, the finance side, and really what it takes to create value in that business. I think those are good. That's a good combination, and I do recommend that to young people all the time. Not that they only go into automotive, but that model applies to pretty much any industry or any business or any sector that you're interested in.
So it would be engineering, then business.
I think that worked well for me, and I've seen many examples of that in many other industries. So yes, I think that is a good flow, a good pattern.
So I just want to switch gears a little bit
Sure.
to just move into what you're working with right now, what
Yes.
you're doing right now. And
Yes.
I've looked at the company, I've seen what's going on, and
Yes.
it's so cool. Could you please let us know about Lordstown Motors?
Yes.
How it's like?
Yes. So for the last 2 years, I've been serving as the CEO and president of Lordstown Motors, which is an electric vehicle manufacturer that builds a full-size electric pickup truck called the Endurance that's targeted towards the commercial fleet market, meaning people that use trucks for work. It is a vehicle about the size of a Ford F-150, so we're a much smaller brand. But I was brought in about 2 years ago to help turn the company around. I accepted the very difficult challenge to come into the company at a time where it was under an investigation by the Securities Exchange Commission. The previous leadership team had made some statements that were not accurate, and thus the investigation. There were several lawsuits on the company from shareholders. And the product was nowhere near complete from an engineering standpoint and a production readiness standpoint. Mm-hmm. So, and then on top of that, we were not very far from running out of cash. This was 2 years ago. Okay. So what I have had to do over that time, and I don't mean I mean the team. The first thing I had to do was help build a team that could focus on the key thing, which was completing the engineering of the product and launching the product. That's one of the things we focused we had a laser focus on. I brought in people with far more experience that we had a decent team, but we needed to strengthen it in several key areas. So I recruited several members to join the team. We implemented and strengthened several processes in the company, and we were successful in launching the product. As a matter of fact, the Endurance at the beginning of this year, the beginning of 2023, was a finalist for North American Truck of the Year. So we launched the product towards the end of 2022, started selling them at the end of 2022 and early into 2023. The other element of the turnaround was we needed to find a way to extend the cash of the company. As I said, we were close to running out of cash. We formed a partnership with another company in order to raise cash and have a longer runway for the business. Mm-hmm. We signed an investor agreement with that company to do that. And third, we were focusing on resolving the legal challenges and regulatory challenges from SEC that, again, were legacy issues of the company. So, developing and launching the product is just one part, but there were other elements of the company that we've been working on cleaning up as well.
Mm-hmm. If all of this, because it sounds like it was a very big mess that you just walked into. So my question is, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah, I think that is the absolute right question for your audience and for young people. And I heard somebody say it best. I'll come back to what they said, but I'll say what I said first. Mm-hmm. I've always learned most in my career by working on the most difficult problems that face the organization and the team that I was on. And that's where you learn the most. That's where it's most critical. That's where you figure out, oh, this was not the right way to go. Let's figure out how do we break down the symptoms of this problem and how do we implement the right corrective action, and how do we do it with some level of speed and urgency, because that's an important thing. And I've been blessed throughout my career to always to not be afraid when there were those situations, to put my hand up and say, I'll work on that. Even as a summer intern, one of my first summer internships with GM before I graduated undergrad, we had a situation where we were making a product. There was a problem with the product, and it was going to shut down one of the assembly plants. Now, you think an assembly plant, the automobile assembly plant, the vehicles are completed about one every 60 seconds. So wow. 50 to 60 jobs per hour, as we call it. That's about one a minute. And just think about if you shut a plant down for an hour, the math, that's 60 vehicles. You do it for a full shift, 60 times 8, and a vehicle costing, let's just round numbers, $50,000, the numbers add up very quickly. So I got a taste of what it was like to be under the gun and under the fire to solve that problem as an intern. And I, throughout my career in industry as a consultant, I never shied away from those opportunities. I didn't shy away from that opportunity at Lordstown. And the point I was going to make was someone who I know very well, he terms it run towards the fire. If there's a fire, don't run away, run towards the fire, because that's where the learning comes. And you can be part of the solution rather than, a victim of the issue. So
to make such decisions to run towards the fire, it requires a certain level of confidence or belief.
Yes.
Where do you think that came from?
I would say, I'm going to quote someone else again. And this was Maya Angelou who said this. You get courage by doing courageous things. And, by starting out on small and even taking on that small project as an intern, as an engineering intern, where we had that problem, we were going to shut the plant down, and working on that. Once I was working full time as an engineer, and a situation like that would come again, I would say, well, when I was an intern, this is how we stopped this plant from shutting down. Completely different problem, but you gain the confidence that says, I could probably get through this. You bring the people around who can help you. You stay calm and you systemically look for what the causes are of the issue, and you get through it. And the more you get through one, you get through the next one. And some are bigger than others. The situation I'm facing today is the biggest one yet. But it has been a tremendous learning experience and learning opportunity. We've been successful in turning around from an operation standpoint and getting the product into production. We're still we've since sold the assets of the company and the vehicle. We're still working through the other legal and regulatory matters, so I won't say much more about those. But even the learning and what it takes to get through those is something I had not experienced before. But guess what? I've experienced it now. And I know what mistakes were made prior to my coming that got the company into this position. And I feel that I am able to take away how to prevent those things from happening in the future.
From your story and from what I'm hearing, is kind of bringing it back to something that I learned. And this was actually I think it was in a conversation that I had with a few friends. And we were just talking about religion, about God. And it was basically along the lines of, God doesn't necessarily put pain into your life for it to hate you, but it's to prepare you for something that's to come. So he puts things that are obstacles in your way, in a sense that he knows that you handle it. You never give something that you cannot overcome. And once you do that, you build the muscle to be able to take larger and larger portions. So I think that kind of
I think you're absolutely right. I don't think I could have said it any better than that, Tristan. I mean, and I fully agree with you, and I believe that. I believe God puts experiences in your life for you to learn from them. You know, I mean, that's how we grow. That's how we develop, and that's how we build those muscles. You know, when you're an athlete, when you're exercising, pain is when things the muscles start to build and develop. So yeah.
So a message to all of those who are listening: do hard stuff. If an obstacle is in your way, if God is putting that in your way, it's for a specific reason. Just know that it's not to break you, but it's to make you. So just know that, and just take it in good faith, and know that He's never going to give you something that you cannot handle. So you've heard it here first. You know that this is that's what it is.
Yes. No, I think that's right. I mean, I mentioned I'm a martial artist. We have a saying in the dojo when the kids or adults are sparring, is a sign on the wall that says you either win or you learn. You know, you either win that match or you learn from it. You either block that punch, you block that kick, or you learn, I need to block that punch or block that kick in a different way before.
Yeah.
So I mean, life is very much that way. And God teaches us that way, just as you said.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
Sure. No. Well said on your part.
So I want to touch more on the process of turning around Lordstown Motors.
Yes.
I want to touch on some of the aspects that you feel like you gained as a leader throughout that whole process.
Yes.
And some of the things that you could probably give to the audience about what it means to be a leader, especially in times of crisis.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I'm very much a believer in you have to have values and culture in your organization. And one of the first things I did when I was first brought in as president, and then the board elected me CEO 8 months later. But the first thing I did when I became president was I instituted a set of values for the company. And those 3 values were integrity, discipline, and collaboration. Integrity, meaning we needed to tell the truth. You know, the company had gotten into trouble for not telling the truth. The launch was off track because engineers and other professionals were afraid to accurately describe the situation of the vehicle program and the business. So I drove a culture where it was okay to say, I have a problem. Put your hand up. You have a problem. You need help. And then we get you the help you need. So integrity was an important one. Discipline. Creating and engineering a vehicle is very complex. Cars are the most complex consumer product on the market. There's not one more complex. There isn't. There's so many ways to get it wrong and fewer ways to get it right. There's so many different systems and subsystems that have to work together under different conditions, different temperatures, different drivers. So think, you know, the propulsion system, which drives the vehicle, the brakes and chassis, which stops the vehicle, the air conditioning, which keeps it warm, the airbags if you get into an accident. All of those systems have to work properly. And to properly develop a vehicle, you need a disciplined process to ensure that all of the parts and all of the systems work properly. All of the hundreds, there are hundreds of component suppliers that are involved in the building of the vehicle. It's not just one person. It's not just one team. You know, the tires may come from Goodyear. The suspension parts may come from a Bosch. You know, several parts of electronics may come from a company in Japan. All of those parts have to arrive on time. The engineering has to be complete on time. They have to work together. They have to fit together. And the team that is assembling all those together has to know how to do it properly. So there needs to be discipline that's followed. So that was the second discipline, the second value, if you will, I instituted. And third was collaboration. Collaboration was key because, one, we were working to launch a vehicle, so engineering and manufacturing have to communicate. You can't just sit in your side and say, well, I'm the engineer, I'm only going to do this. No, if the vehicle does get built properly, the customer doesn't care whose fault it is. It's either done correctly or it isn't. The parts have to be bought on time, so that's purchasing that has a role in that. But they have to be the correct parts as well. So engineering and purchasing has to work together. They have to be at the right cost, or you're losing money on the vehicle. So that's the finance working with engineering and purchasing. So all of these different functions. And there's so many things that's why it's best to follow your passion. If you follow your passion, you'll find something that fits what your interest is and what you're good at and where you can have an impact and where you can make a difference. But you have to have a mindset that you can't do it alone. You have to collaborate. You have to work together. You have to have empathy for the other teammates' issues and challenges so you could work together to resolve them. So collaboration was the third of the three values I worked towards instituting. We were also, as I mentioned, we were taking on an additional partner to address the cash issue and to make the business model, meaning how we would make money, more effective. So we had to learn how to work with that new partner as well. So those three values are what I worked towards instituting, because that would develop our culture. You know, if we built the culture around those values, we could take on those difficult problems and solve those difficult problems and be successful with the operations of the company.
How do you go about creating a culture, especially a winning culture?
Yes.
How's that done?
Well, you start with values and your consistency. You're consistent. Values and consistency. In order to be consistent, I only gave the team 2 objectives. And every time I had a town hall meeting with the team, and I did it monthly. So I communicated regularly with the team, and I encouraged the other leaders on my team, you know, the heads of engineering, the heads of purchasing, the heads of finance, to similarly communicate with their teams. I just gave them 2 objectives. One was to launch the product, and 2 was to build a relationship with this partner. 2 things. And then every month meeting we had, it was only about those 2 things. And I consistently repeated the values. I did everything, I did everything in my power to make sure I was exhibiting the values, that I was not in a situation where I wasn't showing integrity. I was not using the proper disciplines and expecting the right proper disciplines, or was not encouraging collaboration. So leadership has to model the behavior, has to set the values. They have to model the values, and they just have to be consistent and reward the team when they're doing it and challenge the team when they're not doing it.
How do you go about challenging the team when they are not?
So I'll give you an example. We had bi-weekly meetings where we reviewed the status of the launch. Okay. You are not punished if you had a problem. If, your status of your part of the project was either green, which is good, or red, which is bad. Red means you have a problem. Green means you don't. You are not in trouble if you had a red problem. You are actually complimented if you were courageous enough to say you had a problem. Where you were punished, if you will, or reprimanded or coached was if you didn't tell the truth. So that's an example of how you live that, and you reinforce that. If you were to be prepared in those launch meetings with the certain details behind the work that needed to be done and it was completed, whether it was a test plan and so many miles put on the vehicle to ensure that it's working, or a certain level of parts that, all of the engineering drawings were complete, or the cost of the parts getting to a certain level, you had to bring that data. You had to bring your data to the meeting to prove that you were making progress on the timeline, because the timeline is important and the project plan is important. So, and I worked to hold the team accountable to that, and expected that we have that they have that data, and I held their leaders to be accountable for making sure in their meetings with their sub teams that they were doing the same as well. So accountability and consistency are how you get to that point.
Okay. I'm thinking about, it was right now what you said is kind of brought a sort of paradigm shift in me, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, for so long as I remember, getting something wrong is when you get into like you get all the heat for getting the thing wrong.
Yes.
And what you're saying right now is not necessarily like you got it wrong. That's
Right.
the problem.
Yes.
But it's more of, since you didn't say anything and you hit it.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I think this one is more of like that. I think that's how you are enforcing the culture. That's how it's creating the culture, is by continually making sure that if you get it wrong, there's no problem with that. So
Right.
far as you let it be known, so that
Yes.
we can address it, we can help you.
Yeah, if you let it be known and you are doing everything to correct it, and you're doing everything to correct it, you're letting the right people in the organization who need to help you, let them know, and that you eventually resolve it. You come with a plan. You have this problem. This part is not working properly, and it's causing the vehicle to not work properly in this scenario. I'm just, giving an example. If you come to the meeting and say, we have this problem, but I'm doing A, B, and C as the responsible engineer to bring in these people, this supplier, make these changes, and I will have it resolved by next Monday, for something like that. That says you're engaged. That says you are working towards a solution, and that says you are following the discipline. You're using integrity because you didn't try to hide it. You're using the discipline because you have a plan to resolve the issue. And you're collaborating because you brought in the other people who need to be a part of that solution. Nothing big. I didn't understand this when I was your age or when I was young. Nothing big or important, really important, happens by one person. It all involves collaboration. So if you get into the habit of pulling the right people in, you get to the solutions faster. You get to the solutions faster, and you get a better solution for your customer. And that's what every successful business is there to do, is to serve your customer in a way that's better than anyone else.
The right people.
Yes.
What do you mean by the right people?
When I say the right people, I mean the knowledgeable persons, because no one person can know everything. So say I'm the engineer responsible for a part, but I need to know who's the best supplier for that part. I may know what I need to do from a design standpoint to make this part last, 100,000 miles or whatever. But I may not know who's the best supplier that I could count on and rely on to deliver it by this date I have as part of the team, and at this cost level, which is another requirement I have as part of the team. So I can reach out to my colleague in purchasing, who in turn can reach out to their suppliers in their network who they know. They'll say, well, this person is good on quality, but they're not so good on cost. This person is always late. This company is always late. This one we've worked with and had tremendous success before. We should go with them. So that's what I mean by bringing in the right people, bringing in the knowledgeable parties who could help you solve whatever issue that you're dealing with. Sometimes you're the knowledgeable person. So collaboration also means being able to lend your expertise to a situation that your colleague may have, and that's all part of it.
Okay. I want to know, what are some of the soft skills that you feel like you have gained over the years, and how do you see them helping you right now?
Yes. I almost don't even call them soft skills anymore. And I know what you mean, so I'm not being critical of that. But those things are so important. Empathy, meaning, having concern for another person's point of view or how they may see a thing. That's an important so-called soft skill to have. Communication, clarity in communication. That's an important soft skill. Air quotes. That's an important skill because, I spent a portion of my career doing business turnaround consulting, working with companies that were struggling. And I tell you what, in many cases, the issues came down to poor communication and poor collaboration. The right people didn't see the right data, or they weren't asking the right questions. Both of those are communications issues and cultural issues. So when we call them soft skills, I think we sometimes devalue them, but they are absolutely essential skills. And I think the business community is starting to realize that more. That's why you see more training in that particular area. And if young people can get experience in leadership early and develop those good habits in communication and collaboration and telling the truth and operating with integrity and using the right disciplines, then I think they'll have longer careers, more successful careers. I mentioned my time in the Boy Scouts where I really learned about cars. The big part of the Boy Scouts was really youth leadership, youth having leadership positions and developing leadership skills early on. And, I felt that helped me develop as a young person.
Okay. What does success mean to you?
Wow. What does success mean to me? So there's success you have for your particular project you're working on. There's success you have for the particular business or company for whom you're working for, or working with, or creating. And then there's personal success. An important part of success for me is family, and being there for my family, and being there for them for whatever they need. That's an important part of success for me. From a business standpoint, success for me means always being in a position where I can have a positive impact. And I believe business can not just generate profit, but I believe business can do good as well. It can do well for communities. It could do well for teams. It could do well for families. It could do well for nations. So success to me means being there for my family, and being there in a position from a business standpoint where I could have an impact.
Okay. I want to switch gears now to
Sure.
another topic.
Yes.
This is about the automotive industry.
Yes.
You have a book
Yes.
about the automotive industry. Could you kindly share with us?
Yes. The book is called Motoring Africa: Sustainable Automotive Industrialization. It actually has a third title of it. It says Building Entrepreneurs, Creating Jobs, and Driving the Next Economic Miracle. And what it is about, it is a book that's targeted towards the investment community, and to highlight the opportunity and the benefit and the economic development potential that developing the automotive industry in 6 of the 54 countries on the African continent could have. It's based on the experience that I had in the industry working in China, India, South Korea, Mexico, and Brazil. And I basically take the model of how those countries and regions use the development of the automotive industry to create local skills and to take hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and move those nations forward. So it's a very action-oriented book. It takes those examples and how you could apply it to 6 of the 54 countries on the continent.
The 6, what will be the 6 countries?
The 6 at the time, the book was published in 2018.
Okay.
So the 6 were South Africa, Morocco, Kenya, Ghana, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. And I lay out 9 criteria in the book by which those 6 countries were selected, 9 criteria. Don't ask me the 9 criteria. It's in the book. And also what the key 10 steps are to succeed at automotive industrialization. I lay that out as well. So it's intended to be an action-oriented and forward-looking book on how companies can take this and apply those lessons. And I mentioned my consulting firm, Motoring Ventures. I wrote the book to help grow the business of my firm on parts of the continent, because at the time, most of the work we were doing was still in the United States and Asia. And with the launch of Motoring Africa, the book, in 2018, I had the honor to present it at the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, during their industrialization week in 2019. And I also was able to take on several projects with automotive companies and governments on the continent here, on the African continent, that are interested in automotive industrialization. So that's what the book is about. That's what it covers. There's several examples of countries that have done it very well, some countries that have not done it so well. And no, it was a challenge to write, but it was again something I'm very passionate about and believe in. So at the end, it was a labor of love, as you say.
I will not go into detail with the book, but please,
yes,
get the book. I'm going to read the book. I hope you read the book too.
Yes.
Then you can text me about how the book was like, and then we'll talk about the book. Just read the book. Okay.
Sure.
It's available on Amazon.
It is available on Amazon. If you want to, it's available as a what is it? Prime? Not Prime. Kindle. It's available as an ebook on Kindle, on Amazon, or you could get a hard copy, or you could get a soft copy, or even if you just immediately want to read a summary so that you know what it is about, you could go to the website Motoring 54 for obvious reasons, and it will give you a summary that could give you a good overview of what the book will be about until you receive it.
Okay. So you've heard it. Please, the book. All right. I want to.
Thank you for plugging it.
No,
Tristan,
no problem.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
I should have come on your show in 2018.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I want to know how you see the landscape, the automotive landscape in Africa changing with the introduction of electric cars.
Yes.
How is that changing?
So there's two questions there. How do I see the automotive landscape changing? And then how do I see the electric vehicle landscape? If you allow me, I'd like to break your question into two questions.
Sure.
So how I see the automotive landscape changing is the fastest growing populations in the world is on the African continent, as you know. The fastest growing countries, Africa's population of about 1.3, 1.4 billion will be at 2.5 billion by 2050. Nigeria will be larger than the United States from a population standpoint. And the continent is urbanizing. More people are moving to cities. And they will need transportation. It does not make sense as the economies grow on the continent, as populations grow on the continent, for vehicles to not necessarily continue to not be produced on the continent. From a lean manufacturing standpoint, it is best to build a product where your customer is. And what I mean by lean manufacturing principle is, how do you build the product at the most attractive cost with the least amount of waste and best targeted towards your customer? If you locally produce the vehicles, you're able to make them at a more attractive price point. They're better targeted towards what the customers want. And if you're employing people to build those vehicles, the economies grow. Local skills are developed in the region. And quite frankly, people are able to afford the vehicles that they're building. So that's how I see the automotive landscape, the potential for the automotive landscape to change on the continent. Because if you look at the 1.3 billion people on the African continent, that's about 17% of the world's population. Mm. But between South Africa and Morocco, which builds most of the vehicles on the continent, there are only about 1.5 million vehicles built between those two countries. So 17% of the world's population. And they're about 100, just under 100. I'll just use round numbers for simplicity. Just before COVID, there were about 100 million vehicles built in the world every year. 100 million. About 18 million in North America, about 30 million in China, the rest in the other countries around the world. African continent, only 1.5 million. 17% of the world's population, 1.5% of the world's vehicles. You compare China, similar one, just the country of China, one country in Asia, China, similar 1.3, 1.4 billion people. Again, before COVID, they were producing almost 30 million vehicles.
Oh, wow.
1.5 to 30.
That's crazy.
Same 1.3, 1.4 billion dollar people. So you're looking at an opportunity for local production of somewhere between 27 to 28 million vehicles. The difference.
Wow.
So that is the equivalent of a Volkswagen builds about 10 million vehicles per year. Toyota builds about 10 million vehicles per year. It's about, and each of those companies employ about 300,000 people each. So that's about, just for that difference is about 600,000 jobs.
Oh, wow.
And that's just the vehicle manufacturers. When you look at the supply chain, the parts manufacturers tend to create 4 times the number of jobs as the auto manufacturers. So you take that 300,000 Toyota, 300,000 Volkswagen. I know the numbers are a little bit different. I'm just using round numbers for simplicity. You multiply that by 4, that's 2.4 million people. I mean, there's a tremendous opportunity for job creation with local industrialization. And that's what I attempt to outline in the book. It's targeted towards the investment community. It's targeted towards the business community. It's targeted towards businesses that realize that they're looking for their next growth opportunity as Asia starts to slow down, as China starts to slow down, as Africa continues to grow from both a population and economic standpoint. It makes sense to consider the markets on the continent, and don't just look at Africa as one country. It's now a monolith. It's 54 nations. It's 4 to 5 regions, however you want to cut it, each that's very different. And look at the key cities. Look at the key cities where urbanization is happening. And that's the first part of the answer. And when I split your question in 2, that's how I see the automotive market developing. The second part is about electrification. The auto industry is in a transition from internal combustion, which it has been for over 100 years, maybe more, 125 years, towards electric vehicles, and moving away from diesel, moving away from petrol, to vehicles that are powered by electricity, with the energy being stored in a battery and powering electric motors. There is, when you look at it, it's a slow transition. I mean, it's a gradual transition that's not happening everywhere equally. So there are parts of Europe where it's happening very fast. Norway, it's happening very quickly. China has gone to about 30% of their market are electric. The United States is only 7%, but we were only 5% last year. So that's significant growth. And in the United States, there are parts of the country that are much faster, whereas U.S. is only 7% overall. California, is 22% already. Wow. So they're kind of leading the way. Electrification it's a lower cost. The vehicles are lower ownership cost over time. They may be a little bit more to buy today, but over time you don't have the maintenance costs. You don't have to do oil changes, change air filters. Your brakes last a lot longer. There's less pollution. They're not polluting the environment. You mean, imagine all of the vehicles that are in traffic here in Accra, going at very slow speeds, but putting out all of this smoke. Imagine if all of those suddenly were not putting out any emissions, any smoke at all. That's an opportunity. So they could be better for the environment. And the data is showing that as customers adopt electric vehicles, they tend to really like them. And they go from one to wanting to get their next one electric to their next one. So I see, it's a gradual transition because people in general don't like to change from habits. But, I see a tipping point coming in certain regions. I mentioned California. I mentioned Norway. I mentioned China. It's starting to really take off in certain. There's electric vehicles are starting to really take off in certain markets. So if you blend the automotive opportunity in the African continent with the transition towards electrification, there's an opportunity for the continent, the African continent, to focus on industrialization right away towards electric vehicles rather than going through a phase of building internal combustion engines and then transitioning over. Long answer to your question, but I split it in two.
Quality.
But you said it was going to be packed, so I'm packing.
It's packed. It's packed. It's packed. So I don't know. I think we've spoken for quite a while.
Okay.
So I just want to end this. This is the last.
You haven't
topic.
said I could drink any of the water.
Oh,
yet
okay. The last topic I want to speak about is the youth potential. The youth.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the potential of the youth, and how do you believe, or what do you believe are the best ways that the youth could represent itself in the coming years?
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited about the youth potential in Africa. Incredibly. We talked about population growth. The African continent will have the largest workforce by 2035, larger than China, larger than India. And it just doesn't, industrialization is just one path. There's obviously other sectors. There's healthcare, there's technology, there's all of the other sectors that the continent is participating in now. But the opportunity to have the greatest leverage in terms of job creation is still with manufacturing and industrialization. But it's not just building the products, it's creating the products as well. All of the design, the engineering, the testing, the development, those are just tremendous opportunities. As we transition towards electrification, it's not just building the vehicles, there's the charging infrastructure, there's the batteries, there's the components, there's the software, and then there's the vehicle itself. So those are opportunities for the youth when you talk about the automotive industry. And one of the things I highlight in the book is once a nation can build vehicles, they can build anything. So those skills can be transferred into other products in other industries. So I think it's an exciting time to be I think it would be an exciting time to be a young person. You have to best answer that, Tristan. But I imagine it is because I just see so much opportunity. There are organizations and schools that are growing around the continent, whether it's African Leadership University or the ALX program that's developing software engineers all around the continent. There's so much opportunity, and I think the future is bright. I think this is truly going to be the African century, and for the young people who participate in it, I think it's going to be great for them.
Mm-hmm. Because right now we are talking about potential, about the great potential of the youth.
Yes.
How do you think the youth can get to that? How do you think they can achieve that potential?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a journey. It's a journey. I believe it is finding your passion. I think it's identifying good mentors. I think it's being curious, because in addition to, I won't even say study hard, stay in school, work hard. That's obviously everyone knows they need to do that, especially if they're watching your show. So I won't even say that. I think I just did, but I won't say it. You have to do those things, but I think, finding your passion, because that's where you're going to really have a differentiable advantage over everyone else there. What can you do that is going to be more meaningful, impactful, and that you would be uniquely positioned to do that? Think about that. Find mentors that could help you find that. And once you identify that, how they could help you help you get on a path to learning and growing that you would be on. In your career decisions, don't only make career decisions based on money and where you want to live. Once you have established yourself, then you could determine where you want to live and how you want to make money. I think early in your careers, from a youth standpoint, it should be focused on where can I grow and learn the most? Where can I run towards the fire? Where can I have those opportunities, and where will I be empowered to challenge myself, and where I can have an impact? Because that's when I think you'll grow, and then more opportunities come your way. So that's how I would answer that question about how the youth can do it. The worst thing that young people want to hear is be patient. So I won't say it, although I think I just did, because I know I didn't want to hear that. Be persistent. I think I'll say that. Don't be discouraged. Just continue to realize that if you're not getting everything that you want right away, maybe you're learning something you need to learn right now. And I think, it's not always linear. Everything isn't always a upward trajectory. Sometimes they're plateaus, sometimes they're valleys. But if you look at it in terms of learning and impact, over time, I believe you'll have happiness in what you aspire to do and reach your objectives.
Okay. Mr. Hightower, this has been a very, very impactful interview, a very insightful one. To everybody who is listening, I pray that you have taken something from this interview, because if you listen to this can change your life. Please listen, play it back. I said in the beginning, make sure you take notes, because this is it. Mr. Hightower, where can they find you if they want to reach out?
Oh, okay. Well, you can learn more about Motoring Africa at Motoring 54. I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably a good place. I'm also on Twitter at E_T_Hightower.
Okay. All right.
I think it's called X now, though. I still call it Twitter.
Yes. So, thank you very much for coming on this show.
Thank you for having me. You're a great interviewer. Man, you didn't pull any punches. You said it would be difficult, and you delivered.
Yes.
Well done, Tristan.
We thank God. So,
Okay.
if you're messing what's going on the channel, and you like the progress, you're liking where we are going with this, feel free to follow the channel. We try and post, God willing, every week, Sundays. Just look forward to it. If you're looking to follow me and see what I'm up to, you can check out my Instagram, T_C_Duma. You can check out my YouTube as well. It's my full name, Tristan Canfor-Dumas. You can search Empower as well on Spotify, Apple Music. The podcast will show up. Please listen to it. Let me know what you think. And I'm always here to help. If you need anything, if you need any help with anything, feel free to reach out. Mr. Hightower, thank you again.
Thank you.
To end it off, I forgot this one segment. This one very, very important one.
Sure.
You see, we had a tradition in this podcast.
Okay.
And it was basically where the last guest would ask a question for the next guest.
Okay.
And so the question that was asked now was,
Mm-hmm.
and this was asked by our previous guest, which is Ms. Janine.
Yes.
Ezel.
Yes.
She asked this question: who is a person that you would love to meet, and what would you ask them?
Who is a person that I would love to meet, and what would I ask them? Meet or talk to? Meet meaning I have never met them before.
Yeah, you can say, let's just say she said meet, dead or alive, and what question you ask. So, you could say that you've not met them before. You can say you met them before, just in general.
Sure. Wow, that's a good one. That is a really good one. Who would I like to meet that can I change the question a little bit? I keep a list. I'll answer your question. I keep a list of who I would like to have dinner with and have a more detailed conversation with. But I think if I say, who would I like to meet, and what would who would I like to meet? I would say, I would like to meet Elon Musk.
I was thinking about that in my head. I was like, you may say Elon Musk.
I knew you were going to figure that. I would like to meet Elon Musk. Tesla has been a leadership from a technology standpoint in developing electric vehicles, from hardware and software standpoint. But now they're driving leadership in manufacturing engineering, how the vehicles are being built. And it's not just him. So I would probably like to meet him and the core members of his team, because nothing happens, as I said, alone with one person. So just what their approach is there, because they're going to be able to just understand as I study what they're doing, because it's always important to benchmark what your competition is doing. I think they're on a path to be able to continue to reduce the cost of building electric vehicles over time. And as someone who's in this space, who plans to stay in this space, it'd be interesting to meet him and his team, and again, learn from them.
So, what would you ask them?
What would I ask them? I would ask them. What is their decision-making discipline? How do they go about taking decisions for the company? Because many of the things that they do, the industry traditionally would see as too risky. And they have come out in retrospect being the right answer, but just maybe 5-10 years ahead. So I'd like to know what their thought process is. That's what I would ask you. I would like to meet Elon Musk and his team and ask them what their thought process is. That's my final answer.
Okay. Thank you.
That's my answer to your final answer to your question. Yeah. That's how I'd answer that.
Okay. So now it's your turn to give a question for the next guest.
Yes. My question to the next guest is, how have you last run to the fire? How have you last gone after solving a very difficult problem where others may have shied away from it, but you saw a way to learn and grow from it?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now we've covered all the basics. We've covered everything. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy what's going on, please subscribe, like all those stuff, leave a comments, everything. Without further ado, I believe in you. We believe in you. Go and make the world a better place. Don't just live life, but thrive.
Thank you. Well done. That's a wrap. Okay, take one.
Music licensing reimagined.